Hello everyone, Exilium here, and today for Girls Frontline 2, I thought it is a good time since Springfield's coming out next for us in Global, and that we have all the details on Lend from CN, and I've kind of seen her in action myself. Now, I still need to do a follow-up video kind of overlooking and showcasing the videos I've seen on her and how well she's performing in the Corrosion team, but I've got the details and I kind of understand how good she actually is, so I think it's now a good time to update what I would consider my poll priorities going into the future for us on Global. Now, just know this is my subjective opinion on it, and ultimately, it's waifu over meta in this game. The game isn't hard enough where you really have to try hard when it comes to building the best of the best teams, but these are just my thoughts if you're wanting to build really good teams, especially if you're wanting to be competitive on the Gunsmoke frontline and trying to get the highest score within your platoon, and your platoon's trying to push yourself as high as you can on the list. This is kind of my thoughts on what units you might want to look at prioritizing in the future. Now, we know Springfield's next, so we can just kind of look at her, go over her first. She is what I would consider the absolute highest priority unit in the game in terms of getting at least one copy of, but she's one of the few, and she's only one of two units where even for free to play, I would advise trying to get her V1. If not able to get it when she runs, get it on her rerun. The other unit being Vector. As we already know with Vectors, her V1 is the one that gives that additional support action to all burn element support actions. So that's QJ. Eventually, Sharkry will take advantage of that. And any other future burn units that do support actions will be able to take advantage of it. That's why Vectors is huge. Springfield's is even on a higher level than that on her V1. She's already crazy good at V0, but what she does at V1 is she gives Tololo, or creates the ability for Tololo to have 3 actions every single turn. Now you have to have your characters set up to a certain extent to make it work. The first thing is you also have to have Tololo at V2. That's why my advice earlier in the game when we got the standard selector was to try and get Tololo to V2, because that is really her really good breakpoint. That is where it makes her skill 2 do hydro damage versus physical. And so with that, paired alongside Springfield's V1, you can make it where she's accumulating Confectance Index at a rate that gives her 2 extra attack turns every single turn. So she goes from tier 2 in terms of value on damage, taking Tololo all the way to tier 0 on damage. And so Springfield is the absolute #1 highest priority in my opinion. I think everybody should get a copy of her. And she's good all around everywhere, but that's the initial combo. That's what our big combo is going to be for us on Global right off the bat. And then she's only going to be good going forward. Tololo's right now the top tier, but then you got, like, Nikita's also huge in the future that she'll pair well with. And then you got Florence, which I think is really good. I think Hydro, just with Springfield overall, is going to be strong with all upcoming units. And Springfield's not getting power crept anytime soon in that regard. And so she's an absolute great pickup. And then when it comes to, if you're someone that's willing to spend money, go heavy investment into a unit, into a V3 or V6, Springfield's also the unit to do that on. The best dupes in the game by a long shot. She outpaces Klukai. Klukai's really good at that, and she's very flexible, but Springfield is just all around. I mean, Klukai is she's damage dealer. That's her core goal. Springfield is a support, where her dupes also now make her a damage dealer. So if you're somebody that just wants to go full on into meta on Springfield, like the character, she's absolutely great to pull all the way up to V6 on her. The big break points are V1, which is like the must have to me. V2 or V3 is like you're getting that first instance to increase damage. And actually, I have an explanation here looking at the chart. V3 is that significant damage boost. And then V6 is the insane boost that brings her damage up to a level. I think it gets similar to QJ. It's not at her level, but it gets close, I believe, if I remember back when she was first came out. I don't think that's the case anymore with other things that have changed, but she still does really good damage on her own, even though she's a support unit. That is Springfield, and so everybody should pull for her. Just dump all of your pulls you have when she comes out to try and get that V1 at least. You can empty all of them out trying to get it. If you don't get V1 with this first go around, you just absolutely want to save up for her rerun in 4 patches after to make sure you can get that V1. That is my advice on that. We then have, after her, we know it's going to be, because how our event works, Paris, that comes next. Now, if you're good enough and lucky enough to pull off getting a Springfield V1 on this patch, then to me, going into the future, you're very open to kind of going whatever direction you want units, in my opinion, because we've gotten past like the biggest units that are, to me, like kind of game changing to a certain extent on certain teams. We've gotten past Vector at this point, which is kind of the burn meta unit. And then after we get past Springfield, we'll be past the Hydro meta level unit. And then everybody after it, none of these other ones are really significantly game changing to their element, other than maybe another unit for electric. So I think this is where you can actually start to breathe a little bit in terms of, okay, what direction do I want to go with my account? Because I don't think anybody else here is like absolute must-haves, but there are, I mean, some are going to be the meta level one. So kind of looking at Paris, she's kind of one of those situations. I think Paris good. I will absolutely be picking her up because she makes it really easy to trigger all of QJ's support actions. And you can kind of see she has V1 here. I'm not going to advise to get V1 on her, and I think most people, she probably is skippable for a lot on the burn team because you don't really need her. She's just going to make it very easy to get all of the support actions done for QJ, and as you know, with Vector, she can do 6. V1 allows her to do more instances of that, and then if you heavily invest into her up to her V6, she gets significantly more damage into her kit. Definitely not worth it. I feel like she's kind of a lower priority because you have a full burn team without her when we eventually get the unit that came after her on CN. Don't know when we'll be getting her, but you have Chawa here, who is extremely good support action unit on the burn team. But Chawa is similar to Lind. I think Chawa and Lind are kind of in the same role for their teams. And when it comes to pull priors, I don't think they're actually a high priority for the individual account, but I do think their V6s are very high priority for a platoon. And what I mean with that is they have extremely good V6s, but they're very team specific. And what I mean by that is Lind pretty much, I mean, she works good on her own, but she's really, really good with Corrosion. And so if you have one person in your team who gets a V6 Lind, she's absolutely going to be the unit you borrow. You borrow Lind and you pair her with your Mishti, Peridia, and Klukai, and she's going to pop off. Biggest thing being her instances of sugar. I did get it verified that the sugar stacks are permanently, once you get those stacks, they're permanent. She does not consume them when she triggers Honey Trap. And she out damages at V6 every other unit in the game, and ramps up fairly quickly if you have the full Corrosion team. And Chawa's kind of in a similar situation, and why I think she's not a must-have for anybody, as she's a really good borrow unit, because her V6 is quite insane at kind of the same levels. She fits really good in the burn team, but really only the burn team. And the biggest reason being I believe it's this one, the Scorch Mark dot here. So for each stack, increases the damage multiplier by 7%. The biggest thing is in her dupes, she eventually gets rid of the cap on these stacks. I can't remember which one it was. I think it's V3. Yeah, more than 10. Yeah, no longer. So it has no longer a stack limit at V3, but then at V6, it enhances Scorch Mark to do 10% per stack all the way. And then you have unlimited stacks. And with the full burn team, you can stack this up like crazy, and it pops off for a crazy amount of damage. The big thing, though, with her on her V6, it's a really good borrow unit because everybody should have Vector V1. She's just like Springfield, a high priority get. QJ is easy for everybody to pick up a bunch of dupes because she's a standard, and we have the standard selector. You have Cenerisi, who's not absolutely necessary to the burn team, but if you have her, you pair her with it. Or you can take like Xenia. Then you have Paris, which we'll have if you bring her. Not absolutely necessary to the burn team, though. And then you have Sharkery, which is huge, the other big unit alongside QJ, especially when she gets her expansion key and is doing a ton of support actions as well. Her paired with QJ, paired with Chawa at V6 and Vector V1 is insane damage. The big thing is Sharkery's free to play unit, QJ's a free-to-play unit, and Vector's kind of that must pull. Everybody should have her V1 if you want to play on a meta level on the burn team. So that brings Chawa into consideration. She's extremely good at V6, so if you have a whale in your platoon that's pulling V6s on units, this is a great unit for them. So it benefits your entire platoon. Whenever you're using your burn team, you borrow her V6. I actually think she's not a high priority for the individual to pull. But if you do have, hopefully you can get somebody that gets a V6 for her in your platoon. But other than that, she's nothing too crazy at like V0 in that. And I wouldn't say she's crazy. I mean, the big important ones for a burn team when it comes to an individual is Vector V1, Sharkery, V6, because I mean, she's an SR. You should hopefully get that at some point. And then QJ. V3 at a minimum, but all the way to V6 is good on QJ. And that's kind of your core team there. But yeah, same thing as like Len. Very good borrow unit. Hopefully somebody gets a V6 in your platoon for that. We already got Yuhi out. I've kind of discussed her a little bit. She's good at V1, kind of the physical team, but physical overall is a little bit lower on the meta. And so we already kind of discussed her. So she'll be rerunning at some point. And we'll kind of, in 3 patches, and we'll kind of know at that point where physical's kind of leading. So don't really have an opinion on that right now. If you're wanting to build her for an electric team, though, V3 is what you want. Nikita. Nikita is what I would consider one of my higher priorities in the future because Hydro is just so good. Kind of goes alongside the thought with Springfield and Tololo. Nikita just comes in and does top tier damage alongside Tololo and Springfield, and they're kind of the core 3 of Hydro. As you already know, you had the core 3 of Corrosion, which was Klukai, Mishti, and Peridia. Once Nikita comes into play, when she eventually comes out, the meta team on Global is basically going to be Klukai, Peridia, Springfield, Tololo, Nikita. And so if you're wanting that top tier team, Corrosion, Hydro, hybrid team, she's an absolute great pickup. She has really good damage at V0. She starts off really good. As you can kind of see here on their explanation, she gets better with dupes. V1's great. I think all the units, pretty much all of them are getting good V1s now. So just know that. But she is one that actually it's not necessary. But she has really great dupes for 3-3 and V6 as well. If you're wanting to heavily invest in Hydro, she's the second priority into that. I would go all the way to maxing Springfield's dupes before you look at maxing Nikita dupes. Now, if you're a minor spender, you may want to go the direction of V1 Springfield, V1 Nikita. Really good damage. And then Tololo, invest in. Tololo's really good. Her V4 is really, really good. And if you have your V3 QJ already, and you have a V2 Tololo, but not V4, Tololo is actually a unit you probably want to start using standard tickets on to get to V4 because it increases her, let me just actually look at it. It's crit damage related. I can't remember off the top of my head though. Here we are. So her V4 allows Tololo to hit significantly harder during extra action, which she's going to have a lot of them with Springfield. And so definitely want to start pushing Tololo to V4 if you haven't. V2 is mandatory to pair with Springfield. But V4 is significant damage increase. And so that's kind of Nikita. Then we move into Leva. I think Leva is a great unit overall. The big thing with her is you really have it's a kind of a decision point with Leva. We have not gotten any of the electric limited units yet. And it's actually kind of worked out in the favor for a lot of people. It just really depends on the direction you want to go. To me, electrics either you go in or you go all in them on them or you don't. So you either like skip them all or you pull for most of them if you want to go the electric route. Leva is kind of that big DPS damage dealer for the electric team. V1 is really, really good for her. She's kind of, I like to consider her similar vein to Klukai in she has, you got good dupes all the way up to V6, with the big ones being V3 and V6. Does insane damage. She's less flexible than Klukai though, in terms of her team. You can throw Klukai anywhere and she's going to be good. Leva's going to kind of want her electric units to come around to be with her to kind of maximize her value. But if you're wanting to get the electric team and you like the electric units, Leva and Lena, wherever she is on here, Lena was really early. They already had Lena for a while on CN at this point. But her and Lena are like the two main ones. They pair really well together. And I know they're fan favorites. So Lena and Leva, to me, you either want to go electric or you don't, is kind of my opinion there. And that's kind of the priority of them. If they're your favorite waifu characters or whatever, you want to get them to have them. If you don't care about electric at all, just completely skip them. Very easy. They're not super flexible in that sense. Lena has some decent dupes as well. They're V1 and V2. Don't really need to go farther than that on her. And once they start coming out, we'll probably start discussing the poll order for their dupes. I'd have to kind of still think about it. I think you absolutely want to get Leva's V1. If you're wanting to really invest in them, it's Leva's V1 and then Lena's V1 and V2. And then if you're really wanting to invest after that, you push Leva all the way to V6. But that is if they're your favorite units. Like I said, I think electric is easier to skip. You either skip them all or you kind of start investing them in all of them, which also then brings into consideration the other ones. You have Andress, T0, absolutely great sustain that pairs well into the electric team as well. She's the third, I would say, in the core of the electric. You have Leva, Lena, and then Andress. Those three to me are like the mandatory pickups if you want to invest in electric. She's kind of weird in how she plays. I haven't heavily looked at her entire kit yet, but she focuses on, she has like these summons with these turrets, as you can kind of see. And so you don't need to invest in dupes in Andress. She's just a really good pickup overall for electric. And then Belka's one that I have not looked into her kit much at all. She's an electric damage dealer, but apparently does not pair well with Leva. So she's actually a low priority at electric and easier to skip. And from what I've been told, I have not seen the tests on this. You're actually better off if you want to invest heavily into electric, using standard pulls to invest in Mosin Nagant and pushing her up to V4 and then eventually V6. She does a lot better inside the electric Leva, Lena, Andress team than Belka, because Belka's buffs and debuffs don't really synergize with the other electric units. And then also the last one on the electric is Jian Yu. She's probably in the same vein, she's probably the easiest skip, I think, for a majority of people. She really doesn't fit into the core of the Leva Lena electric team. Now, I think she's probably one of the more flexible of all the electric teams, but you want to max her out on dupes, which is at least V3. But V6 is where she can start doing some decent damage, because her entire gimmick is doing support actions similar to Macchiato, except it's ambush, meaning anything the enemy does, whether they move, attack, or anything, she will ambush them for damage. And so she's flexible in that aspect, but you have to heavily invest in her. So most people, I think she's a skip. She's not part of the core of the electric team in terms of providing the buff that you want. So she's very low priority. I fully expect us to start seeing the electric units after Springfield Paris event. I don't know the order. We have no clue. It's a dartboard, like everybody says. It could be anybody. But I expect us to start seeing them at some point. And it might be back to back to back to a certain extent. Because my guess is it's going to be an electric unit, maybe 2 electric units back to back. Then they'll throw Chawa in the mix there somewhere, because she's just an easy one to throw in there because she goes well with the burn team. And then maybe another electric unit. And then who knows. But that's just me guessing. Who knows? They could go any direction they want, though. They've already shown that. So that's kind of all the electric units. And so I'll just kind of repeat myself in the beginning. It's either you invest in them, or you can just completely skip electric altogether. Then you have like Robella. We're starting to get into more on the ice terms of things. It's similar as in terms of, are you investing in the ice team or not? Robella works well within the ice team. Ice is currently not like a meta element. They're in the same situation as physical, one of the weaker elements. But if they're your favorite units, you can invest in them. They do quite well. But I say Robella is overall a lower priority, in my opinion. And it's similar with Lainey. Lainey's same situation. Pairs well, physical, works really well with them. But physical right now is lower tier. We really have to see what comes up next on some more future units that might bring more value to them. But it is hard. They're just lower. If you're heavily investing in physical, get Lainey. If not, easy skip. And then we come to Florence. Hydro is a top tier team. She is not mandatory for Hydro, though, for Hydro to be good. I really like the unit. Definitely like her kit. It's kind of unique. She's very high risk, high reward, especially with Tololo when you put her buff on it, where every single time Tololo goes, she consumes an equivalent of 20% of her HP, which Tololo goes 3 times in a single turn. But she's nothing crazy in terms of amplifying the damage of your team. If I'm not mistaken, I would have to look. I can't remember the number specifically. She doesn't bring Mono Hydro up to a level that's better than the Hydro Corrosion Hybrid team in terms of max amount of damage. But I think she's still a really good pickup, and my reasoning being, at the point we probably get Florence. It really depends on the order they do it. We're completely not following CN at all. But it's getting well-diversified teams, especially if you're doing 3 hits on Gunsmoke. And even though the... Oh, my music's about to actually end here. Let me get this. I don't have it looped. It's going to go right into boss music there. There we go. Oh, man, I lost my train of thought now. All right, we'll go right back to here. And so... Florence isn't needed for the Hydra team for the maximum damage, as I was saying, but she is going to make it easier to build other teams. Now that we have Lind, we're starting to see where we can start separating Hydro from Corrosion and building those mono teams so you can have a complete Hydro team and a complete Corrosion team, and boom, you have 2 of your hits solved for Gunsmoke. And then the last one being probably Burn. I think a lot of people are going to have a really good Burn team, and there you go, you have your 3 or damage dealing teams, and they're the most free to play of all the teams: Hydro, Corrosion, and Burn, in terms of at least getting something together. And that's where Lind also comes into play too. Lind is really, really good alongside Corrosion. She can do the most damage. She's a big borrow unit, like I said already, because I've already kind of gone over in that aspect. But she's starting to make it where now we can start looking at potentially separating out Hydro and Corrosion for it, and we're going to have our 3 separate teams for 3 hits. And that pretty much covers everyone, I think, now. I think, let's see, is there anyone in here that we have not gotten yet that was early? I think the big one is Lena. Yeah, Lena and Jian Yu are the earliest units that we don't have yet that CN had at this point. Everyone else we do have. So that pretty much covers everyone in terms of what my priorities are. And kind of just to summarize it, Springfield must have, in my opinion, all the way at the V1, absolute best unit. Then it ultimately comes down to, after that, I feel like you have the most flexibility in the direction you want to go. Nikita's probably the biggest of everyone after it to get, just because of how good Hydro is, and she's just more damage for them, and pairs extremely well with your hybrid Corrosion Hydro team. Then everybody else is kind of just flexible in the direction you want to go in your favorite units. I think Florence is a really good pickup, just because it's giving you more options in terms of starting to have your 3 teams for doing maximum damage on Gunsmoke Frontline, as you can start separating that hybrid Corrosion Hydro team. Now, if you want to, like, if you're heavily investing in electric, you may want to skip someone like Florence, because you don't need her. You can just stay with your Corrosion Hydro hybrid team. Then you have your Burn team. And then you have your electric team as your 3rd for Gunsmoke hits. And so you can skip Florence because you don't need her, because you're not going with a mono Hydro. And I've seen some other hybrid teams with electric, I think Burn and stuff. There's some kind of unique hybrid teams that I've seen formed. And I'll make another video on this. But I did see a post on Discord for the newest EX difficulty, and they have changed it up. And like I discussed last time, we're starting to see where the meta for these EXs are completely different, because they have conditions that like negate the value of certain characters. The last one made it where Klukai was complete garbage, because I think the AoE damage basically did no damage at all. Or I can't remember the complete details, but it made Klukai very bad. But it made single target support actions very good, or people that could repeatedly do attacks. And I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head, but it made where a hybrid burn electric team was good. And so that's some things we're starting to have to look at and think about when it comes to units as well. I'm not really theory crafting that here because that difficulty really doesn't have any rewards that are like anything crazy in terms. I think it's just related to like a profile thing. That's nothing insane. So I'm not too worried about that in terms of the meta. I'm really mostly focused on Gunsmoke here when it comes to polling. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That kind of covers my priorities and my thoughts on all the units. Let me know in the comments what your priorities are going into the future. Like I said, this is all subjective. These are just my thoughts on the units. But yeah, if you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.